Okay, today we're going to look at some more primitive data types, namely the byte, the short, the long, and their associated widths. I'm going to open up a file here that I started a little bit earlier, which we're going to be filling in. So here's the primitive types. Notice how I always put kind of like a header at the beginning of my classes. Just gives a description of, to the reader of the code what to expect when opening up a file. So get into the habit of kind of putting a header at the beginning of your programs. No matter how short or insignificant you might think they are, it just helps, again, the reader of your code, kind of have a purchase on the ideas that they're about to get. Okay, again, using English language to facilitate the understanding of your code is good practice. Okay, so we're going to begin with the byte. I'll call this here the byte. Now, byte is the smallest data type that we have. A byte contains 8 bits, which is basically, think of it as 8 switches, each one being off and on. And we don't use it too often, but it's just good to have in your back pocket. So let's take a look at the size of a byte. Okay, the maximum and the minimum size. So I'm going to declare this variable a byte, and I'm going to call it my minimum byte value. And notice that I'm doing camel case when I declare my variables. Okay, what that means is uppercase at the beginning of each word, no spaces except for maybe the very first word. I do lowercase. So my byte value, I'm going to have it equal to, and I'm going to use the wrapper class for byte. Okay, and it already gives me some options here. I'm going to have min value, so click that and put a semicolon at the end. And similarly, I'm going to do byte, but instead of min, I'm going to have max, and I'll just change this at the end. Again, a wrapper class is something that there are a bunch of things that you can perform. Okay, it's a collection of functions or methods that you can perform on the data types. Okay, so in this case, it's things that I can do with byte, things that are byte data types. Okay, for example, determine its maximum or minimum value. So I'm going to print this out, what they are. So sysout control spacebar is a shortcut. And I'm going to write out byte minimum value equals, okay, I'm going to concatenate the value of this over here. And similarly, I'm going to have byte maximum value equals my max byte value. Okay, so let's see. Actually, before I run this, remember, a byte has 8 bits, and that's switches of on and off, ones and zeros, however you want to think about it. What is the total number of possible states that I can have in that case? Okay, because when I run this, you might be able to intuit what that is. So you'll notice that the min value is negative 128. The max value is 127. If you do 2 to the power of 8, what do you get? I'll leave that up to you to explore further. Okay? And here's another question for you. Here I have negative 128, but it only goes up to 127. Why doesn't it go up to 128? And I'll leave that to you again, but the answer has something to do with what's in the middle of the integer line. And remember, that middle counts as a position. Okay? It's not something to be ignored. Anyways, I will leave that. Let's get into another data type. So we have a byte. Next one is a short. And a short is integer type. but it stores less than an int. So instead of an int stores 32 bits, a short can store 16 bits. And we're going to look at that. I'm going to copy all this, paste it, and I'm going to just take a shortcut here. If you go to your edit, you can go to find and replace, and I'm going to find byte. I'm going to replace that with short. So if I look here, notice that I have short, 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 short. Let's see what happens now when I run this. Oh, I do have to make one change because this is not a byte, this is a short. Save that. Now I'm going to run it. And there you have it. Okay, you'll notice that the maximum short value is 32,767, and the minimum short value is negative 32,768. Again, think about those numbers in the relationship to powers of 2. Okay, moving on. We have up here, we looked at the byte, the short, next is the long. So the long is in between, the int is in between a short and a long in terms of how many bits it has. The long is the one that can store the biggest type of numbers. So I'm going to do long here. And again, I'm just going to cut and paste this, and I'm going to replace byte with long. So again, go to your edit, find and replace, and I'm going to go byte, capital B, with capital L, long, replace all. And you know what, I'll just use this for the lowercase one, and replace all as well. Okay. So here we have a long. Notice the wrapper class for long is also long. The max value, the min and the max value, let's take a look at what they are. So I'm going to save this. Very, very big numbers. I'm not even going to attempt at reading that. But you notice that if ever you want to store an integer that is pretty big, definitely you're going to use the long data type. One thing when it comes to long values, this is just a side note, is that when you are initializing them, so let's do it here. Let's call it my long value, and I'm going to initialize it to 100. Okay. Notice how I have an error here. I already have this broken line saying something is wrong. Okay. Thing is, with longs, you have to put an L beside them. Okay. I'm still getting an error. I think that's because I'm not using it. Yeah, it's not used. So I'm just going to print it out. Put it in here. And I'm going to run this. And there you go. Okay. You have to put in a capital L. You can even put lowercase l. It makes no difference to Eclipse. But that's just, there is a reason behind it, but just think of it as, you know, the syntax of Java. So when you're using it, put in an L. Otherwise, it will recognize it as an int. I'm not exactly sure why, but it does. Anyway, those are our some more data types, and we'll end it there.